Hello, magic lovers. Welcome back for another reading from my series, Jack and the Magic Hat Maker. Tonight, I'm going to be starting to read book 2, The Kidnapping King. Sorry about that glare. Let's see. So there you go. You can see it. Anyhow, super excited to start reading this to you. But before I do, just chit chat for a minute. It is much later than I expected to be reading this to you tonight. It is 11:02 in Oregon, 11:02 p.m. on Friday night. And I should have really done this on Wednesday, but I didn't because I've been working so hard on getting this student workbook finished and uploaded to Amazon. It's a companion workbook that goes with book 1. And I'm right now in the process of uploading it to the Amazon KDP, which is Kindle Direct Publishing platform. And the interior is finished. It's 130 pages long. It's comprehensive. It's good. I think I'm pretty proud of it. I'm happy with the way it's turned out. But at the cover, I've got the cover all created and ready to go. And Amazon has this previewer when you're publishing on their platform that you have to upload all of your content, and then it goes through and approves and gives you a preview for you to go through and approve it. And the cover, I have to keep editing it and making the images on the cover smaller. And so I've done that a few times now, and I just decided, yeah, know what? I promised myself I'd have it done by this weekend. I'll definitely have it ready and on offer by the end of this weekend. It'll be done tomorrow. I'll have it finished and published tonight. I am not going to bed until this is ready and published on Amazon tonight because I'm just so ready to have it done. But I figured I'll take a little break from the publishing part to read to you. But before I do that, I just wanted to tell you it's just so cozy in here tonight. I'm feeling so fall-esque, and I'm really enjoying it. Fall is my favorite season of the year, and I can't even believe it's almost, what is the date today? The 8th. Okay, it's not the middle of October yet, but time is just flying by right now. I can't even believe how fast the time is flying, and I'm very excited about the holidays, the upcoming holidays and everything. One of the reasons I'm excited, just a little sidebar, is that Jeff and I have been following a whole foods plant-based diet for the better part of a year now. Well, I started in the end of February and he started in the first part of April, and we've been doing it together this whole time. And we've never done anything like this together before, and so this is the first year that we'll be having the holidays devoted to this new eating lifestyle that we're pursuing. So I'm actually pretty excited about thinking about how we're going to be celebrating the holidays with regard to cooking and baking and foods and stuff. So I'm actually pretty excited about it. But here in my office, it's so cozy tonight. I've got my this little burner here is for melties, fragrance melts. And I'm burning these ones that my sister sent me for my birthday last year. And I haven't been melting them most of the summer because this is really quite a fall fragrance. And in the heat of the summer, I don't really like to have melties going on, but I like the cozy factor when it starts getting cool outside. So these ones are really good. I'd never heard of this company before, but these are called Beanie Melts Highly Scented Wax Potpourri. And I have no association or affiliation with them whatsoever. My sister sent them to me for a gift, so I'm just sharing with you guys because I really like them a lot. You're not going to believe how many you get in this package compared to like Scentsy or some of the other companies that you can get fragrance melts from. But anyway, these are called Beanie Melts Highly Scented Wax Potpourri by Ashman Candle Company. And they're out of my hometown, my home state of Utah. They're produced in Linden, Utah, which is like right by where I grew up. And this particular fragrance is called Strudel and Spice. And look at how many you get. Like, this is my hand. Look how big. Like, you get a ton of these. Like, how many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times 4. So you get 20 melts in this. And I don't know. I haven't even been to... Oh, their website is ashmancandles.com. I should check them out. I have no idea how much you pay for a package this size, but most of them like Scentsy or whatever, you only get like this many, in the package or whatever. So anyhow, it smells really good in here right now. I wish you could smell it. It's so yummy. Strudel and Spice by Ashman Candle Company. I highly recommend them. Just gotta say. Okay, and I've got my little, over here, I've got my little salt lamp going that my daughter gave me for a gift that I like having. And so it kind of puts a little like pink Himalayan salt free, and not fragrance, but at all. But ambiance in here, it's got that kind of cozy pink and golden pink glow going on. So anyhow, and somebody told me that they noticed this hope sign that I've got here. These are like, I got these years ago from the same company. This company's out of business now, but my hope sign and my little angels. My mom gave me this little angel back here. So this is kind of my little cozy space. So it's my office, and this is where I like to read to y'all. So anyhow, just thought I'd share some little personal insights tonight before I start reading The Kidnapping King. I'm super excited. So I'll get on with it. I'll dig right in. So caveat though, before I start reading, I have to say, if you have not read or listened to all of book 1, The Golden Telescope, in its entirety, before this, do not start listening to this book 2, because you won't get it. Like, there'll be so many spoilers, and it just kind of picks up where book 1 left off. So I highly encourage you to go get the book on Amazon or wherever you like to buy your books online. I'm at all the major booksellers online. Or listen to all of my chapters that I've read to you prior to this from book 1, The Golden Telescope, because you really have to have the background from book 1 before you start listening to book 2. All right, that said, let's dig in. I should kick back here and get all comfy and cozy. Chapter 1, Inez and the Portal. Stockholm, Sweden, present day. The abyss was dark and formless. Millions of tiny, bright lights were speeding past as Inez McPaden traveled at high speed through space and time. Thoughts were only a blur in this disembodied state. She felt confusion and rage building within her. What just happened? The experience was short-lived, ending abruptly as she landed, face down, spread eagle, on the hard parquet floor of the foyer in her exquisite Ostermalm home. Inez pushed up under her elbows and rested, momentarily reestablishing her boundaries. The pendant. She reached up to her neck and discovered it was, in fact, missing. Ethan. How could the boy have betrayed her trust so completely? Her eyes widened, and then the hint of a smile gradually turned up the corners of her mouth. That's right, their agreement. Smoothing strands of long, dark hair from her face, Inez sat upright and glanced around her. Flamel stepped out of the music room. "Madam?" he asked, when confronted by the image of his mistress sprawled in a disheveled mess on the floor. Dashing to her side, he took hold of her elbow and gently helped her to her feet. Inez roughly shoved him away, smoothing the front of her blouse and brushing off the knees of her slacks as she gathered her wits about her. "Thank you, Flamel." She looked at her servant, who was wearing a bewildered and slightly frightened expression on his age-worn face. Shaking her head back and forth and blinking slowly, she addressed him. "Things didn't go quite as planned, but I'm fine. No need to worry yourself." She turned from him and headed toward the staircase. A small frown was forming on the butler's brow. "But Lady Clara and young Master Ethan, will they be following you, madam?" Inez turned and glanced in his direction. "That is yet to be determined. I expect their arrival will be delayed. How long is anybody's guess." She turned again and, holding tight to the handrail, carefully made her way up the stairs. Arriving upon the landing at the top of the staircase, Inez turned to the left and slowly strolled to the far end of the hallway, where she opened a door that looked the same as every other door in the house. This one, however, revealed a large, mostly vacant meeting room, and the energy of the space was different from that of the rest of the elegant home. Unlike the light and welcoming decor filling the balance of the house, this room was deliberately designed to evoke a sense of fear, darkness, and foreboding. The center of the space was dominated by an enormous, round ebony table, around which were positioned 7 ornately carved chairs. Their style was sharp and Gothic. On the far side of the room, behind the table, and built into the wall, was a door frame of the same color and design as the chairs. But instead of a door with a handle where it would normally be, there was only a glossy black wooden panel. To the far right were floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking a vast expanse of lawns, walking trails, and forest on the outskirts of Ostermalm. Inez walked in and closed the door behind her. She strolled across the room to the windows and stared out for a moment before turning to gaze at the table. Her thoughts turned to the last time she sat in this room, 3 days prior. "This situation is taking a turn we never intended." Earl O'Brien glanced around the table at the others seated there. A deep frown creasing his brow, and a furrow was forming between his eyes, where his little, round glasses sat upon the bridge of his nose. "But at least we know where he is now. Lizzie and I have been distraught trying to locate him." Well, we still aren't sure exactly who transported him or how it was accomplished," Inez began. "But Phineas has determined that 2 boys are currently hiding out at the family home. We further strongly suspect that Bill Flanagan, the friend's father, is the responsible party, or at least made the arrangements to relocate Jack to MacPayden Manor." "Yeah, I seen 'em all out front when they arrived with their bags and all," Phineas Dreadfort piped in. "We need that boy," Thaddeus O'Brien interjected. "All these years of care and preparation are for nothing if we aren't able to control all 3 children." "Exactly." Clara MacPayden stood from where she had been sitting and walked around the table to stand next to her sister. That's precisely why Inez and I have formulated a plan to get him out of there. She brushed her pumpkin-colored hair away from her face and looked at her sister, a wry little grin turning up the corners of her mouth. "Oh, really?" Genevieve Whisper Still joined in, a sparkle lighting her vibrant blue eyes. "Do tell." "Clara, you do the honors." Inez glanced down at her younger sister. "It really is quite brilliant." "Well, I've crafted a pendant for Ethan," she started. "Sister and I have been working to convince Ethan that Jack is being groomed to replace him as the heir apparent, usurping his rightful position and title in the family line." She looked at Inez. "Ethan is fully convinced and on board with our plan. This next part is sheer brilliance." Inez looked back at Clara, who continued. "It's very simple, but should be convincing." She paused, grinning at the others. "You see, the three of us, Inez, Ethan, and myself, will teleport into the upper observation room at McPaden Manor together. All three of us will be wearing port key pendants that I've crafted. Each pendant is programmed to open a portal from here to McPaden Manor and back again. But only the pendant on Inez will be active and visible to anyone else who sees us. Ethan and I will keep ours hidden beneath our clothing. Once we arrive, we will locate Jack, and here is the genius part. It won't matter whether he's alone or with others when we find him. The plan will be as effective either way. At some point in the interaction, Ethan will feign reading the minds of those in the room. Then, in a dramatic display, we'll turn on Inez, grab her pendant, and shove her back through the portal, effectively convincing Jack and any others present that he is a turncoat, has suspected us of being evil for quite some time, and is now on their side. The portal will safely return Inez here, to our home, and Ethan will have earned Jack's trust along with the others in the house." Those sitting around the table were wearing broad smiles and sitting forward in their seats. "That is brilliant. But how does this plan get us any closer to controlling Jack?" Earl leaned in, his eyes squinting into thin slits. "Just wait, Uncle." Inez lifted her index finger in the air, nodding her head. Both eyebrows raised high up on her forehead. "Yes, this is the clever part," Clara continued. "Remember that Ethan is also wearing a portkey pendant. Now that he has set Jack, and anyone else in the house, at ease, he will be in a position to not only gather additional inside information," she paused, tilting her head to the side with a grin, "but he will also be able to arrange for an ideal opportunity to grab hold of Jack, materialize the portal, and transport him directly back here to us." She finished, looking very pleased with herself. Lively chatter broke out around the table as all those seated expressed enthusiasm for Clara's plan. Hem. Genevieve rose her hand in the air. "I'm confused," she started. The others quieted and looked in her direction. "What is it, Jen?" Inez asked. "Well, it's just that, as genius as this plan sounds, and it is genius, what about Clara? How will she get out of there after Ethan has set himself up as a hero and pitched her as an enemy? Nothing has been said about a return route for her." She looked at Inez and Clara and waited. "Thank you for your concern, Auntie." Clara grinned brightly. "But we thought about that and decided it will be much more beneficial if I allow myself to be captured." It was obvious the idea thrilled her. so that I can gather more intel about who in the Order of Light is leading this plot to thwart our plans. I'm going to be an infiltrator, make them think I'm worried I may be in danger from the rest of the cabal, and that I'm willing to switch sides. She giggled, placing a hand on her stomach and shaking her head from side to side. But remember that I will also have a portkey pendant around my neck under my clothes. So I will be able to return home at any time. I will just need to be careful not to allow them to search my body. If that seems likely, I'll initiate the portal immediately. Impressive, Thaddeus said. It seems you've thought of everything. So Ethan will return with Jack in tow? And you're confident he will follow through with his end of the agreement? He can be quite bullheaded, you know. Yes, we're sure he will hold up his end of the deal. Inez looked at him. He is enamored with the idea of titles and powers, and has no intention of allowing his little brother to usurp his rightful inheritance. Sounds like him, Thaddeus said, a small, prideful grin spreading across his face. Do you have a date scheduled? Yes, Clara is putting the final touches on the pendants. We will be ready to take action in the next couple of days. As far as return goes, Ethan knows the timeline is short. We've stressed that he needs to grab Jack and get back to us at the earliest possible opportunity. We don't want him exposed to any distractions, Inez finished. We'll keep you all informed of things as things progress. Clara looked to the door frame and spoke a word, igniting the pendant around her neck. She raised her hands, and a shimmering portal appeared in the space. The others in the room stood, shaking hands and preparing for their departure. Safe journey, she said, as Genevieve approached and stepped into the portal. Chapter 2. Grandma Lydia and Sam. Indian Ocean, off the coast of India, 1879. Lydia McPaden gazed out the porthole across a vast expanse of choppy blue water. A distant shoreline was coming into view, and she was beginning to feel an anxious yearning for solid ground beneath her feet. Ship life was not something she ever imagined she would be destined for, and after these months at sea, she was aching for life on land. Turning from the window to view her current surroundings, she inhaled deeply, then let out an exaggerated sigh. She was not fond of the late 1800s. She thought of herself as a more modern girl. The kerosene lantern hanging from a hook on the far wall, used to illuminate her cabin, had an offensive odor that permeated the space. The ink pot sitting on the rickety wooden writing table in the corner was messy, leaving ugly splotches all over its surface. And its accompanying feather quill was an unfamiliar and cumbersome tool used for composing letters. She missed the conveniences of the 20th century. Small things like electricity and telephones and commercial air travel. Lydia was anxious to return to her own time and location. If only she would hear back from Jack. She hoped he would figure out how to use the telescope. A knock on the rough-hewn oak door interrupted her reverie. "Yes, enter," she said, and she watched as the antique-looking brass knob turned slowly and the door creaked open. "Hi, Sam," she said with a smile when the 13-year-old appeared in her doorway. "Mistress Lydia?" The girl paused, glancing around the room before continuing. "Uncle Joe wanted me to find out if there is anything you're going to need before we disembark." Her eyes came to a stop on the worn, leather-bound trunk standing at the end of Lydia's bed. "I think I'm almost finished packing." Lydia looked down at the trunk. Just a few more items and I'll be ready to load this thing up. Lock this thing up. She motioned toward the clothing and other items placed neatly inside the case. Will you please ask your uncle to send someone down to haul it up on deck for me? When the girl nodded her head, Lydia continued. How are you doing, Sam? Excited about this new adventure? India seems very exotic. I'm a little nervous, Sam said, and she fidgeted with the folds of her skirt before looking up. It's just that I'm so different from the people there, she said, looking apprehensively at Lydia. That's understandable, but keep in mind that being different can be an advantage sometimes, Lydia said, stepping forward and reaching out to caress the strawberry locks on the young girl's head. I'll bet all the local kids will find your differences very enticing. Sam averted her eyes, gazing down at her hands. Little orange sparks were barely visible, bouncing from her fingertips. Lydia glanced at them and pursed her lips, then added, Hey, at least they speak English, so that's a big plus. She smiled brightly at Sam. Yes, that's a plus, Sam grinned weakly. I'd better go up and tell Uncle Joe about your trunk. And she turned to leave. Actually, on second thought, I'll come with you. Lydia reached for the charcoal gray woolen cape hanging on a brass hook next to the door and tossed it over her shoulders. I could use some fresh air and a walk on deck. She stroked the girl's hair, then the two of them stepped out of the dim cabin and headed up the rough wooden stairs leading to the ship's surface. Emerging from the protection of the staircase, they were greeted by brisk winds that slapped sharply against their faces, prompting Lydia to quickly lift the hood of her cape and tie it beneath her chin. She was glad for the crisp salt air after being cooped up in that small cabin most of the day. Walking cautiously to the side of the boat, she quickly grasped the handrail to balance herself before gazing out across the choppy waters. Off in the distance, a coastline was visible, with evidence of civilization coming into view. Staring down into the ocean's depths made her think of the first time she embarked on a similar voyage. I'm trying to decide if I should read one more chapter or call it good for tonight. I'm at 27 minutes. The next chapter is chapter 3, and it's entitled Jack and Ethan, Dublin, Ireland, present day. I think I'm going to call it quits for tonight. That gives you a start on book 2, The Kidnapping King. There you go. I hope you're enjoying it so far. Join me again on Monday when I read the next chapter or 2 to you, maybe even 3, depending on how long and how much I chitty chat with you before I get started reading. Do check Amazon for my new student workbook that goes along with the Golden Telescope. It's a lot of fun. I put a lot of work into it. It took much longer than I thought it would, but it's going to be available by tomorrow, tonight, before I go to bed. It'll be ready to go. So anyway, like I said, it's 130 pages and it's filled with all kinds of cool stuff. Like, I've got multiple choice question and answer sections for every chapter in the book. There's a story-themed word puzzle. There are Jack and Bart coloring pages that I had my artists do. Just line image renditions for coloring pages. My illustration artist did that for me. What else is in there? Lots of fun to increase reading retention and engagement. So anyhow, that'll be ready too. Anyhow, if you like my stories and are enjoying this content, I hope that you will subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and give this reading a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. I really do appreciate it when you take the time to do that. And ring the little bell if you want to know every time I upload new content. Until Monday, I hope you have a fabulous weekend, and I look forward to hearing from you soon. Take good care.